With so many people struggling with their mental health during these complicated times, how do we work through those uncomfortable feelings? One group is using empathy as a tool to help build mindfulness. In 2020, FGCU unveiled the Rock Center, or the Roots of Compassion and Kindness. The center aims to develop skills like understanding and listening to help students and others in the community. We are joined by the director of the Rock Center, Dr. Maria Roca. Maria, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So explain to us, when the Rock Center developed, you wanted to focus on things like empathy and compassion to kind of relieve some of these issues like anxiety and stress.
So we were founded because we had a donor who thought that if we taught college students about compassion, kindness, and empathy, that we could then send them out to the schools to teach children, and that if we taught 8-year-olds all about compassion, kindness, and empathy in one generation, we could change the world. That it would be a kinder world, a more loving world. We would reduce anxiety, we would reduce depression. And so we've now been doing this work for 5 years.
Great. So help us to understand this connection between listening, kindness, understanding with others, and how that would impact one's own mental health struggles, feelings.
At the core of that is connection, right? So if you're listening to others, you're connecting. You know, if you and I are talking, we're making eye contact, it's not about looking at your phone, it's not about wondering who's texting you, but being fully present. So when we teach compassion, kindness, and empathy, we teach our students how to stand in the shoes of the other. So if I'm talking to you, it's not about the time that the thing you're talking about happened to me, it's about what's happening to you. And my full focus becomes you. That gets me out of my own head, gets me out into the world, and helps me become a more connected, more present, more mindful human being. It also causes me to think differently about how we walk in the world, and that's the way I talk a lot about what we teach. It isn't so much conceptual as it is about a way to walk in the world. You know, it's one thing to have values, it's a whole other thing to live them. And so we really try to teach our students, children, how to actually live compassion, kindness, and empathy. So we encourage them to go do acts of kindness, to just come up with ideas of random things they can do for strangers or for people in their lives. And they all come back reporting that it has completely changed the way they feel about everything, particularly themselves. They feel better about themselves.
There's research, science to back this up,
science to back
right?
it up, yes. So when we're doing acts of kindness, when we're becoming more compassionate and empathetic, we're shifting out of the amygdala, the more reptilian part of the brain, and into the frontal lobe, which is the more reflective part of the brain. We see that when we do fMRIs on people as they're thinking about compassion, kindness, and empathy, we actually see different parts of the brain trigger. And you see them light up. It's one of the most extraordinary things to be able to see. And you start to realize that this makes us healthier. There's actually research that suggests that kinder, more compassionate people have fewer illnesses.
Really?
Yeah, fewer colds, I mean, it's really quite fascinating.
So you talked about your work in schools. Tell me about what the impact has been there.
So our first schools were mostly K-5 and then some middle schools. And right away they started seeing reduced behavior referrals, reduced bullying. We had the classes that were doing more projects with the Rock Center. Kids from other classes were actually asking to go hang out in those classrooms. It produces a whole different energy in the classroom because the children are starting to think about how to be kind to each other. And that, again, just changes the way you walk in the world, even from the time that you're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old.
Speak a moment to a lot of the professionals out there who are tied to the cell phone or the tablet or the computer, just stressed out, right? Trying to make a living, trying to make ends meet. How do we become more mindfulness? How do we lower that blood pressure and just be more present and happier, right?
You just said it, shut the phone off. There are some really wonderful books out right now. One in particular that's called The Anxious Generation that was written by Jonathan Haidt. And in it, towards the end, he really talks about needing to become more intentional in the use of your technology so that you're using your technology rather than your technology using you. And at this point, too much of the time, our technology is using us. Every time we hear that little noise, the ping, the vibration, and the first thought is, oh, I better reach for my phone. We have to get better about shutting all those things off so that we decide, I'll take this hour today and check my email, check my text messages, but that we're not constantly checking all day long, because that produces anxiety. And we have scientific research now that supports that. All of this is producing anxiety. I'm in the middle of finishing grading a set of papers right now, and one of the things that has stunned me is how many of my students are talking now about ADD and ADHD. It's the largest number of all 25 years of teaching of this particular course. I've never heard this many of them talk about having these kinds of attention issues. They talk about anxiety, they've talked about depression, but now more than anything, it's the ability to even stay focused for a few minutes. And that is all the technology constantly tugging, you know, and every time it does, it gives you a dopamine squirt, so it keeps us addicted. We are literally addicted to our technology, and so we have to break the addiction. And we need to become very intentional parents. We need to not let our children, you know, if we're busy, we can't just hand them a piece of technology. We need to get them involved in a craft or reading or something physical, but don't just give them the iPad, don't just give them the phone. Really encourage them to be doing something physical.
Yeah, and connect with others, right?
And connect with others, yes.
Dr. Maria Roca, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. We've got more great content for you, from news to the arts to the environment. So be sure to like and subscribe to WGCU's YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms for the stories that matter to you.